Hi, this is Seth Breedlove, and you are looking at me right now, actually. That is me. This is the very first day of filming on the Flatwoods Monster, A Legacy of Fear, and this is what we are calling a director's notebook. Standing here with a camera there and another one right here. At an angle. Coming this way. It could be cool with this stuff in the foreground stretching into the distance. The first day of filming was done in a couple locations, but the number one location was right here at the Flatwoods Monster Museum / Braxton County Visitors Bureau. This is the former location of the Braxton County Visitors Bureau. It has actually moved since to downtown Sutton. You were just seeing Ashley's interview for the movie. Ashley had some really cool stories from her family who lived up in the hills in West Virginia, and she was gracious enough to spend a couple hours with us at the museum that day. This is actually John Gibson's interview. It was I believe John was the first interview we shot this day. John's interview only lasted about 45 minutes, but we got a ton of information out of him.
But to be honest with you, I kind of think
Obviously, if you've seen the movie, Andrew Smith is the head of the Braxton County Visitors Bureau, and he was also with us throughout the entirety of the shoot. In fact, I don't think there was a day where we were filming in Sutton or Flatwoods that Andrew wasn't with us.
Thanks for coming in, Ashley.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, now this footage is from the second day of filming on the Flatwoods Monster movie, and this day was just Zach and I that went down, but my parents were there, mostly to shoot behind the scenes footage. So other than a couple of these shots, most of the footage from this day was shot by my mom and dad or Andrew from the Visitors Bureau. But this was actually the first shots of the day that we got while we were down there, and this is the opening shot, the drone shot that pulls back from the Braxton County the Braxton County sign was actually shot here, right at the entrance into Braxton County. And this road is actually really busy. It's a little dangerous. And this is inside the new location of the Braxton County Visitors Bureau, which moved. In fact, they were not quite set up for filming. And if you watch the movie, and you can see here in these shots, obviously, but the whole museum is still being set up and put together. So when we were in here filming, it was actually kind of prior to the point where they were really ready to start having people in the museum, but they were kind enough to Andrew quickly set up this display just so we could start filming some things. This was some of the first footage, other than the Braxton County sign that we shot to start the movie. This was some of the first footage we shot with the Mavic Pro drone, which it was really astonishing. You could fly this thing indoors like this and not worry about crashing the drone into something and horrifically damaging things. This is Zach shooting footage of the original Flatwoods Monster illustration that was seen on We the People television show and seen in the original Braxton Democrat paper.
Because even if unless you're deathly allergic, I don't know, you could still probably be in the room for a little while.
Yeah, just a little sign. Oh.
Yeah, maybe a little sign that
No,
says,
get the heck out of there.
Oh,
This is still on the second day. This was towards the end of the second day of filming. This was just Zach and I at this point. And if you've seen the movie, a lot of the footage toward the end was shot by Zach and I right around downtown Flatwoods. And I think this is about 9 o'clock at night.
Hey, Bonnie.
Hey, Bonnie.
Yeah. We're going to get run over.
It really is.
This is the green screen shoot. So if you've seen the movie, this Natowski scene, which is supposed to have this sort of very 1950s drive-in movie vibe, that was all shot on the green screen in my brother-in-law's garage.
All right. Just say action. Quiet on the set. Action. Little movement, so you guys are, so we know you're.
We had never shot on a green screen before, which you can tell if you see the amount of wrinkles in the actual green screen. And originally, this was supposed to be a much larger green screen than what we ended up with. Originally, it was supposed to be about a 30-foot, and we had 30 feet, another 30 feet of green screen, but we were unfortunately not able to use it because the stand and the lighting wasn't working. Plus, the space ended up being more cramped than we thought.
Yeah.
Like that? Look.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's give that a shot.
All right. Redo.
But a lot of the shots had to be done from the interior of the car, so the green screen would be in the background instead of like the edges of the garage. And Zach had to use an 85 millimeter Rokinon lens instead of anything wider. Originally, this was supposed to be a lot wider than it ended up being, but because of the fact that the green screen was so small, we had to shoot with this tight lens so you wouldn't get the edges of the green screen.
All right. You hear something? Scary, creeping you out. You start walking toward it. Cut.
That is the mad scientist behind the Flatwoods Monster movie. This is my brother-in-law, J.D. Riggs, who created the full-size Flatwoods Monster. I'm not going to help. I'm just going to shoot. I'm not sure it comes across as impressive as it was in real life. JD spent months actually working on this Flatwoods Monster replica. It was 13 to 14 feet tall and weighed around 500 pounds. He made it from old tanks, like gasoline and oil tanks. He welded them together and took them apart, and it basically created this horrifying monstrosity, which we lovingly referred to as Bob. So Bob the Flatwoods Monster, as it was well known. Now this shooting, what we're seeing here is JD putting the monster together sometime in early January, although he was working on it as far back as early December. So, like I said, it was months of working on this thing and kind of getting everything together. The base was built to actually sit on wheels, and it would actually wheel down this track. JD had soldered these metal poles, and it would actually roll on them. Unfortunately, we only got one shot off with the thing actually moving before the wheel fell off the track, and we could not get it back on the track because, again, it weighed 500 pounds.
Oh my.
Head alone that he has on the forklift right here is probably, I don't know, maybe 200 pounds, possibly more. That was one of the heavier sections. The face weighed around 100 pounds alone, the face that sat inside that. And we had to move the entire thing with a forklift because it was so heavy. And when we put the kids in front of it, it was even scarier because the kids are like 4 feet tall, and this thing's just hovering over them. This is filming in Sutton in early January that I actually did sort of last minute. I wanted to get one more interview, and I knew Dave Spinks was a Braxton County / Flatwoods local, so I wanted to be able to interview him.
I've been investigating the paranormal for over 30 years now due to experiences I had in the
those experiences centered around the area, like around here?
Oh, absolutely. I'm checking.
So it's going to be back down near the entrance. You're going to
Okay,
see
so what is this? Okay, all right. So we'll do those by the entrance then.
Yeah, back down.
So let's.
Where we're shooting. Oh, that's true. We could shoot them with the other stuff.
Yeah. Close-up shot of them going away.
So this is the final day of filming, officially anyway. It was a series of incidents. Basically, we had to shoot the entire scene with the kids encountering the life-size Flatwoods Monster. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be over the shoulder, but it could be them walking toward us or probably away from us.
Okay.
In slow-mo, or even like from the side in slow motion.
So this is
mushroom, everything else is pepperoni.
This is the front, right? Did you?
Yeah, walking.
So that's this.
Yeah, but probably I want a couple different angles on that. So one in the woods and then one further up toward the top of the hill.
All right.
So this is the actual scouting we did of the property to figure out where we were going to be filming. We had to walk probably a quarter mile back into the woods and then to this field where we were actually going to place the kids, although the monster wasn't far from where they were, where we actually had the monster scene shot. Always save your receipts. It's important for tax time.
Well, wait.
So our actors for the scene with the monster encounter, unfortunately, I did not have access to child actors, and definitely not enough boys. So the scene is actually comprised of my nieces and nephews, filling in as boys. We had 3 girls, as you can see. The only thing we didn't have was a 17-year-old as Jean Lemon, but the ages are actually really close to what the ages of the original kids were. My sister Sarah is playing Mrs. May.
I am gonna get all the houses and stuff.
I know. This shot that he's doing here, there was a mix of handheld shots and then lockdown sort of steady. We called them like classic Hollywood style shots. But the handheld shots were seen mostly in the Mrs. May sequence, where you are supposed to be sort of seeing the Flatwoods Monster encounter through Mrs. May's point of view. Up that direction.
Okay.
So duck under that and keep going up until you get to the point where you can't walk anymore.
Okay.
All right, and Graydon's got the flashlight.
Do I hold it up like that?
No, don't.
Why is it?
What? One thing we learned through all of this was that dealing with child actors or non-actors, I guess, but just dealing with children in general is very difficult, especially when the drone was coming at them and things like that. They just had a really hard time focusing on being scared or being in character. So we really had to work with them a lot, actually, and try to get them in the moment. There was a lot of high-pitched screaming. We had fog machines going, lights. Later in the day, there were a lot of lights flashing and things like that. So we were also surprised none of the neighbors called the police or anything like that. I'm gonna throw up. All right. But the shooting this day went on forever. I think it was eight or 9 hours of this sort of thing. The kids were on camera or being filmed for about 4 hours, 3 or 4 hours. But the rest of the day was actually a lot of just getting shots set up and figuring it out. It's funny because if you look at the movie, there's just these quick glimpses of the monster here and there. But to actually set all this up, all the shots, it was extremely difficult.
Now we have to look at the camera, except up towards the east. We see you get eat first. Brandon, you get eat.
A lot of the shots through these Flatwoods Monster recreation scenes were taken with a, it's called a lens baby. It's a kind of a weird art lens. But it gets a really cool visual look to it. And this was sort of the most difficult things for these kids to work with, was having this drone coming at them, because they didn't know whether or not I would be able to. They were worried that I would run into them with the drone, but the drone has flight detection, so it'll if it's gonna hit an obstacle, it'll just completely shut down. But convincing them of that was very difficult. They kept checking behind them because they were convinced it was going to run into them with the drone. And then once we relieved the kids and let them go for the night, this was sort of how the remainder of the evening went. Was a lot of fog machine stuff and just getting weird close-up visuals of the Flatwoods Monster's face. So the production of the movie from start to finish lasted around 8 months. We started filming August of 2017 or July of 2017, and we finished up in February of 2018. So it was a very long shoot for us. But I think overall the movie came together great. There's really amazing visuals, especially the effects stuff that Santino Vitale, who's actually in these scenes running the fog machine. That's Santino that created the stop motion shots. But this is the Flatwoods Monster. Hope you guys liked it.
Oh.
Mr. Fog over there.